Welcome back to Not Enough Projects. Today we are back on this 1973 Dodge Dart that we've been going through a complete drivetrain swap on. Last time we were working on this, we got the engine all wired up, plumbed up, and running. This time we're going to be doing the rest of the finishing mechanical work, and hopefully by the end of the episode be getting this thing driving. So let's start digging in and see what we got to start with. So first major thing that we got to deal with before this thing's drivable is our fuel system, which currently we don't have one because this fuel tank was not pulling anything, and actually I just saw it was crushed at some point in its life, and they tried to repair it with that putty. It didn't work because it leaked gas everywhere. So that's awesome, all over the driveway. Well, the 5 gallons I put in at least. What can you do? Whatever. So this should be pretty easy. We already got access to everything up here. It's pretty much disconnected. We'll disconnect our sender unit, and other than that, we just got to drop our straps, I believe, and down she comes. Yuck, look at that. I don't even want to touch it. These look like they'll come off okay. I might hit them with a wire wheel real quick just to expedite the process, but and the tank is empty, so self-emptying tank. Alright, we probably got to get these screws out and then pull the whole assembly out. Luckily this is a pretty easy tank to drop. There's nothing in the way that we got to deal with. Plus we don't have an exhaust to deal with, which helps. Missed the line. I think that's the evaporative line. Oh, okay. That works too. Lots of spiders and stuff. But that wasn't too bad at all. Let's go get our new tank and get our cylinder and stuff installed. Okay, so here's our new tank. It was surprisingly affordable on Rock Auto. I think it was like 70 bucks or something like that. Well worth it. Here's our new sender. I got a 3/8 sender, even though we have 5/16 line for now. But we'll put our new seal on. Fish this bad boy in. Okay, I believe that is our orientation. There's a little bit of preload on the pickup. Alright, so I'm going to fight this ring on. We're just going to get it on there and then tap it over so that it locks like that. And it should be good to put back up and in. Okay, so the new tank didn't come with a new filler neck seal. Should have realized that, but our old one is no good, obviously. Surprisingly, Amazon has one for next day delivery. How weird is that? So we'll give that a try. But in the meantime, we'll wait on this, just so we don't have to take anything back apart to get the filler neck on. Let's turn our attention to the brakes. Having the fuel tank out is actually beneficial for the brakes because it gives us a bit easier access. So this should be a pretty simple setup. Move over on this side. So over here, this comes, oh, this was test fitting. That's right. So I don't even know why I did this. We'll take this off. No, this is stock. This is stock, wasn't it? I believe. No, it's not. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so both these lines are coming off. We have the hard line that came with this Explorer. At least I think that's what it was. We should be able to just use all the stock Explorer pieces because it has a similar setup to this. Let me go grab that hard line and we'll kind of see how it fits down in here. We have our two new brake lines. One, this is the left side, the driver's side, has this part that goes to the caliper with the banjo bolt. This connects to the main line that comes back from the master cylinder, and then this heads over towards the other side. So that is why I had this old piece getting test fit. We're gonna have to kind of modify it a little bit because this line has to go this way. So basically all we're gonna have to do is just bend this line, well, hopefully bend it, not break it, need to make a new one, all the way back here. So that our new line can fit onto the caliper. Which, let's just put it onto the caliper for now. Gotta go grab a wrench because it's in there. So here's our new line on with our new copper washers. It only fits on the one way. There's a little thing that sticks up, a tab, that locates this hose right there. So, we have to work with that. I don't entirely remember how this was set up in the donor car. Probably something about like that would be my guess. Which could work for us, I think. Although, we might just have enough room to do that. And I think that would give us plenty of suspension travel with that flex hose. Okay, so let's see if we can bend that line, the existing line, over to meet this around there. And I believe this hard line would go something like this. It's so long because we obviously shortened one side. So that's a couple inches. Well, I think more like that length. That's going to be slack, but that's okay. As long as everything matches up okay. Oh yeah, we got tons of space. What do you think about that? The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is whether there's enough travel in that hose, but I think there is. It looks like a solid few inches of travel to me. Kind of would have liked to put it over here, but that would mean redoing the whole hose. That would give us a little bit more travel, but I don't think we need it. Maybe let's pull the hose off the caliper and see what kind of travel we can get holding that part up there. I just want to make sure it's not hanging at full droop. Okay, I'm going to need 2 hands for this. Not a whole ton. I'm not super happy with that. I don't know, let's maybe jack up the body and see how much at full droop we get. Okay, that's not quite full droop. Yeah, it's a little bit tight, but I mean, in normal driving it's never going to get that tight. You know, let me see if I can pull the line a little bit more, because if we could put it right here I'd be really happy. I don't like that either. A little bit better, but then that line's free floating. Plus I don't think it's that much better, is it? I don't know, were we thinking back here first? Maybe that's going to be better, I don't know. There's enough slack to kind of reroute this line a little bit better. Okay, I think that's about as good as we're going to get. I mean, we're pretty close to full droop and there's lots of slack here. So, I'm pretty happy. I think that'll be okay. Worst case, we're going to have to do a custom line or something, which isn't the end of the world. I'm sure they even make them off the shelf. This kind of application. So we'll just bolt that line down to the frame rail. I don't know if you could see over there, but see there's lots of slack. Got another inch or 2 of travel, and we have the car jacked up quite a bit compared to the rear end. I mean, you can see how far away from the bump stop we are. That should be good for that line. Now, this line, let's get our other side hose bolted onto the caliper. Or actually, we have an old one. So here is the current hose. I don't know where originally it bolted on. So we could put it somewhere like here. Connect our hard line up. So way up top here on the top of the housing, we have this bolt, which I believe holds onto this. So we'll put that in so we can kind of get a reference point for our line. I don't know if you can see it right now, because I certainly can't. Oh, wait a minute. I'm an idiot. I'm a complete idiot. You guys are yelling at me this whole time. Okay. This is the side that goes to the vehicle. I didn't even need to touch the original line because it has more than enough length to go into there. Okay, well, hopefully our line will bend back without breaking. And then, this makes way more sense. This hard line goes into this side. Sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to fix all that and then bring you back, and it should just be plug and play. Okay, so here is kind of our setup right now. Obviously we have our main line going up where it's supposed to be. Then we have this soft line, which I think what we're going to do to kind of fix it in place is we'll weld the nut onto the housing alongside the U-bolt, and that'll let us bolt that down. We still have these hold downs along the tubes that I saved, and one over here that I gotta kind of bend the line for. On this side I'm thinking we'll weld the nut on the other side of that spring perch, then it'll bolt down there really nice. But before we'll do that, I'll make sure that our system hydraulically works. So I'm going to tighten up all of these connections and then we'll move forward. And before we look at the master cylinder, which I believe is the next step, because I think we already hooked up the front brakes, we have a new drive shaft for this, so I think we might slide that in, make sure all's good there, and then we'll move and wrap up the brakes. So here is our drive shaft. Ordered this in from, I think it's Inland Driveline Empire or something like that. They're down in California. Looks okay. Would have been nice if they painted it, but whatever. For the price, I would have thought they'd painted it, but whatever. I'll slide on the car. Hopefully this fits in. No issues. Look at that. Just about perfect. We can thank my expert tape measure skills for that one. Got the right bolt pattern on this. Obviously got to get the other bolts in and tighten them up. But you can see we got good clearance all the way around, and then just the right amount of stick out. So thumbs up there. Probably ought to paint this so it doesn't rust away. So that may be coming back out. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Let's take a look at our master. So I have a new master. This one obviously has seen some better days. Of course, we already have leaves blowing in here, because why not? We have a new master. This one probably works okay, but you can see it's super ugly. So we got a new one. I'll paint it. Let's go get it out of the box and compare. And actually, I take it back. I don't think I am going to paint it, because I feel like painted masters never hold up right. These are kind of supposed to be corrosion resistant, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I will paint it. Anyways, we look good on the master. Unfortunately, they don't really make a disc master for this, so you can see our rear reservoir is still very small. That's just something that if this ever wears out rear pads, you got to check the level. Not a huge deal, just slight annoyance. Let's R&R this puppy. Another thing we're gonna have to deal with is our shifter setup for the transmission. This is a column shift car. I did get a whole new linkage setup that supposedly works with the 727, because we had a 904 before, obviously. Oh no, it's not. Never mind. Like, fairly certain these just come out, but yeah, you can see that one just has a little pocket. No clip or anything. Why does this one fight? Alright, let's look under the dash. There we go. I think it was just stuck in there. Yeah, it's like a mildly interference fit. Clearly we needed a new master. There we go. Okay. Oops, sorry. Alrighty. We'll just leave these disconnected because we're gonna have to leave the master probably. I'm gonna need help for, so I'll do that. And actually, I mean, you don't really, you know, I know you guys don't care about the bleeding process. You've probably seen that 1,000 times. So I'll just bleed the master, you know, you put your fingers over, have someone slowly press the brake pedal until you start getting good pressure. Then you connect the lines, and you do open, close, open, close, open, close, pump, until we get fluid out of all 4 corners, and then hopefully we should have a good brake system. And I'll bring you guys back once we have that. Then we'll look at welding our nuts on to hold those rubber brake lines back at the rear end. Another quick aside, you may remember last time our transmission cooler lines, we needed some adapters to make this work, and I could not find any kind of combination that would take the flare fitting here and put it into the 1/8 inch NPT, into the radiator, which I would maybe not want to do it that way anyways, because the aluminum strips really easy. Ask me how I know. So I think it'd be good to do a rubber line in between, which is exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to take the flare nut off, put a line on for both sides, and I think that's a way better setup than going hard mounted, even though it's a little more leak prone. So yeah, I will get those brakes good to go. Okay, I'm still waiting for help to bleed the brakes, but we have our new grommet. Just a little bit better than our old one, and it seems right. So we just gotta work this down into its hole. There we go. That looks pretty good. Hard to beat. 1-day delivery from Amazon. Crazy that they had that. Alright, let's wrestle this back up and in. Well, So actually having the tank out makes access to the rear brakes a lot easier for those brackets we need to weld onto the axle housing. No, I'm jumping around, but maybe let's start looking at our shifter situation. Let me go get the new shifter linkage. So here is, well, this is our old assembly, but here's the new torque shaft assembly we got. So there's a bracket that goes obviously to the transmission, to the frame, and then we have the actual shaft itself along with hardware. So here's the one that came off the car with the 904. So this goes up to the lever, I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly. Yes, I believe this goes up to the lever. This goes to the transmission. Is that right? Well, one of them goes up to the lever. One of them goes up to the transmission. As the lever rotates, it rotates the torque shaft, which then converts this into forward and back movement and pulls the shifter around. Apparently the 904 has a different setup. The shaft itself actually looks identical, it would appear. The new one has some interesting welding. First day on the job, I guess. That's okay. It's just a shifter rod. The old one's quite a bit nicer, but we will use the new one because maybe there's a geometry difference I don't see. And I think the main difference is the bracket that goes on the transmission position, possibly. I don't know. I think you have to replace this. That's why we got the kit. Anyways, it's going to be kind of miserable in there. You won't be able to see anything, so I'll just put it in there. Might flash a diagram up on the screen just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, because it's hard to tell inside the car. So I'm going to put this all in, and then I'll bring it back and show you. Okay, real quick, I figured I'd show you, so we can get a good view of the ventilation that we got to repair. So here is the first bracket. That's the frame bracket, and the torque shaft goes into that hole. The other one, I believe, bolts onto this ear on the transmission. And then way up there, I doubt you can even see it. Maybe you can. Right there. That is where the rod comes from, the shift column. And then we have the rod that comes back to the transmission shifter right here. So I'm going to shimmy that all up in there and then bring it back. Alright, so the torque shaft assembly itself is in. Really wasn't too bad. Worst part was getting the clip in on this other side because not a whole lot of space to get in there. So one thing is, I think actually the whole torque shaft assembly is the same as the 904. At least that's what it looks like to me. I think the only different part is this rod, which is of course the only part I didn't get. But I think we can modify it to suit our needs. You can see, you can't see, maybe now you can see. The 727 rods I think have a larger kickover this way. So you can see we're just a little bit too far to the driver's side. You can kind of force it over, but we want this to just kind of drop right in. We don't want tension on this. So given that this just moves linearly back and forth, I think we can just put a bend in this, just a slightly larger bend. It's only, I don't know, a 1/4 inch maybe, and we should be fine, I think. So I'm going to take this over to the vise, see if I can give it just a little bit more, and there's tons of room for adjustment. It was all the way down here, so we have a whole nother inch of adjustment. Okay, give her just a little bit of tweaking, now it drops right in, so happy with that. Now we got to adjust it, so let's go get the shifter itself into park. So right now I don't know what it's in. Transmission's currently, well, now it's in park. So unhook that just so it's not fighting. And once both are in park, we'll tighten down this adjusting nut bolt, and then it should be good for all of the gears, but we'll check throughout the range. Hard to see the little marker, but we are in park. Let's go downstairs and see. Looks like we need just a little bit more bendage, it would appear. You see it does drop in, but a little tighter than I would have wanted. Okay, so just a little bit more, and then it drops right in. So now we'll tighten this nut down. I don't know why I keep saying nut, it's obviously a bolt. Need to get the cotter pin and washer and stuff on this puppy, but for now that should do. And now I should be able to reverse, neutral, drive, second, first. Feels great. I'll go through and double check that we're indexing all the gears right, but we should be, I'm sure we are. Actually, I'll just show you how we do that. So let's put it into the other extreme first. And that should move the shifter lever all the way forward. And now we want to make sure it just comes right out easy, no pressure, which it does. So that means throughout the range we should be good. We can go ahead and put it in drive. Still comes out super easy. Obviously to get into park you gotta lift the shifter inside, so we're not gonna do that, but we are looking good. Not too shabby. So what I'm gonna do is just put our cotter pins in for this rod, and then the rod where it connects up to the shift column lever. Alright, shifter is good to go, working awesome. Let's get our drive shaft in, which let me show you real quick. Got her all painted up, and hey, look at that. I recognize that. Just did a quick coat of flat black, you know, just don't want it to look all rusty and gross, and actually came out really good. So it's also nice and durable. Well, kind of cleaned it up as best I could before, so I'll take any overspray off of the yoke and we'll put it in for good. Alrighty, we're looking good. Still gotta get our trans mount nut on. I was unsure positioning, so I left it loose so that we could wiggle around when we were putting this in. So we're gonna do that now. You see we got a little bit of paint there I gotta take off, but perfect amount of stick out. Happy with that. That means I was not an idiot when I measured this. So yeah, let's turn our attention to the throttle cable, which is the next main thing, other than the brakes and the fuel, which we have on standby. Alright, so I still got to tidy up our wiring mess in the engine bay. That's kind of a last step though, once we get everything 100% working. So our Slant 6 throttle cable supposedly was too short, and I did get a new one because this one's kind of all rusty and, you know. Actually, I mean, it's too long. That's right. You see how long it is. You probably could make it work, but I got a shorter one along with the stock bracket setup, so let's see how that's gonna work. Okay, so here is our reproduction throttle cable bracket, which actually I got this just down the road from me. Well, not really. It's 5 or so hours southeast in Idaho Falls, I believe it was, so it's kind of cool. Anyways, this bolts to our intake and provides a clamp for the cable, and also I believe this is a spring attachment location, which is always good to have. So let's get this out of the bag and see how it fits. Also forgot to mention, here's our new cable, which seems about the same as the old one, so that's fine. That old cable's old, so it's good to replace it. Actually, I think that pin is for the kickdown linkage, now I'm thinking about it, which we still got to deal with, but I figured it'd be better to kind of get eyeballs on the whole setup with the throttle cable working before we do that. So I believe this just bolts somewhere back here. Apparently I have the vacuum advance canister not oriented properly, which it might work, but that's irritating. I thought that was the stock location. I might need to pop the distributor up and move it over a tooth rather. So let's get those two bolts out and then get this bracket bolted down, and that looks like a pretty good alignment. Not that it really matters with the cable. Maybe before we even do that, let's try to get our old cable removed, which I believe is done only inside. Looking at our new cable, actually there might be a little clip that goes around that plastic bit. Let's see. I don't know. Let's look inside. Yeah, there it is. It's in here. That's an easy swap. Looks like we gotta get this little plastic plug out of the pedal without breaking it, ideally. Okay. And our cable end pulls out. Okay. I think I need 2 hands for this. That just pulls up, I think. Okay. That didn't want to come out. Probably hasn't been out since 73 when this was made. But now it should just pull straight through. Yep. So we'll pull it out from the other side, get our new cable through. Maybe we'll do that after the bracket is in, just so it's out of the way. Appears wherever I got my information was wrong. Looks like the slant 6 and the V8 throttle cables were exactly the same. So that's maybe good info for somebody. Not that it really matters. I think this new cable was like $8 or something stupid like that. And it's, you know, shielded a little bit farther. That shield probably has broken off this many moons ago. So I'm gonna put that bracket on real quick. Okay, there we go. That looks really good. Shove our new cable through here. I'm gonna go get that installed. Okay, it's all installed inside now. Okay, I'm not 100% which linkage hole is used on these. There's different ratios for GM, Ford, Dodge, and I'm not sure which one of these. Obviously it's got to be above the pivot, but I'm gonna have to look that up. Hopefully we don't need an adapter or anything, but it would appear that hole's the closest, so we'll see. So it looks like you actually need a special adapter. I think it's 1481 is the part number. Amazingly, my local O'Reilly has one in stock, so probably head over there and pick that up, just so we can get this buttoned up. Obviously we gotta get the kickdown / throttle valve line hooked up before it really gets driven, but we can at least get this set up and, you know, put it in manual first or whatever, go up and down the driveway. It's not like it's that critical that you drive up and down the driveway, transmission's ruined, no. So, I'll get that adapter, we will put that on, and hopefully have our throttle cable all ready to go. Also, because you guys probably already noticed, I ordered an air cleaner for this. Obviously, the picture was deceiving. I did not look at the diameter close enough. It's a little dinky. I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad looking. But, you know, you want to open a hood and see a big, huge air cleaner. So that'll probably be getting swapped out, but for now it's fine. So here's our adapter. There's how it installs. Pretty simple. So let's put it on. So I'm guessing there's actually supposed to be something that comes out like that. I don't think it's supposed to go directly into that bracket. This is not how it's supposed to go, but it's how we're going to do it for now. Just that we have a functioning throttle. There should be a pin that bolts onto this and then has a shaft that this locks onto. At least I'm pretty sure that's how it's supposed to go. We do need a throttle return spring, obviously. So we will figure that out. We have a bolt hole here. We can make some kind of bracket and put a spring in. So for the time being, here's our throttle return setup. I actually like that layout, so we'll make something that's a little more fixed. Probably that follows this. What we probably end up doing is just drilling a hole through here so that we could loop the spring through nicely, and then probably same on the other side. That works really good. Let's test from inside. Feels like we're getting full throttle. So that's good. I did actually order the cable kickdown setup. I don't want to deal with the whole linkage disaster that's stock on these, so we'll set that up when that gets here. For now, we will circle back around to our brakes. Actually, before we do that, so for now, what we're going to do is look at another thing that's preventing us from actually running it for a significant amount of time, or even driving it at all, which is the transmission cooler lines. I mentioned this already, but I'm just going to run rubber line straight from the solid line to those nipples that I put in. I'm just going to cut the flare nut off. We'll keep that flare to help retain the hose, and it slips over. So I'll just do that real quick with an angle grinder, hose clamp those bad boys on, and should be good there. And while we're over here, you may remember that last time, the power steering bracket kit that I ordered from Mancini Racing, they forgot to include one of the flat triangle pieces, the part that bolts to the timing cover. So they sent that part in, and it works perfect, except I guess the Slant 6 pump has a different length snout, so we're gonna have to get a V8 pump, and hopefully that'll bring that into alignment. Unfortunately, it's not just a pulley issue, unless they make a pulley that goes way back. I don't think they do, I'll have to look, but it's kind of looking like we'll just change the pump out. Okay, here's our cooling line setup. Looks pretty decent to me. I like these fuel injection style clamps because they don't dig into the hose and they give a nice even pressure around. And for something high pressure, definitely worth it. Yep, so that looks good. We'll keep moving on. Okay, so here is our line holder setup. Obviously, just welded a nut on there. You can see you got some primo welding going on. Overhead welding is tricky. Anyways, they're welded on solid enough. All they do is hold the lines on. I would have liked to put that one on the tube also, but that would have meant reworking the hard line, and it works as it is. The soft line doesn't rub on anything, and it should work just fine. I think now we're ready to put our fuel tank back up and in. I guess I should add, I bled the brakes and everything holds pressure. They seem to work well, hence why I welded everything up. So yeah, now I'll put the tank back in. I'll probably just spray that because who cares? Okay, fuel tank's in, hooked up. The filter situation obviously needs some adjustment. Probably what we'll end up doing is cutting the line and putting it in there instead of straight from the tank to there. But for now, I just have it hooked up so we can test. So yeah, fuel tank should be good to go. Got the filler in. It slid right in with that new bushing with a little bit of grease over. So I think we are done down here. I'm trying to think of what else we might have. Obviously, I still got that nut I gotta put on, but hooked up our speedo cable. Not that we have a speedo right now, but that's not hanging down. We gotta tie up our wire for sure for the fuel pump, but for now that'll work. And I'm gonna double check all of our suspension. I think I gotta set it on ramps and torque it down with the front preloaded. I don't think I've done that yet, so I'll do that first. And then I think we're basically ready to fire it up and make sure the wheels spin. Last thing we gotta do, we gotta put oil in the differential. So I will pop that plug and do that real quick, and then we'll continue on. So I got our kickdown cable. Obviously we still gotta hook it up on the bottom, but up top we have to figure out some kind of mounting situation. So I think we need to come to this bottom hole, and it came with a little bolt-on thing that the cable attaches to, so we'll just replace this bolt with that setup. But we have to mount the housing somewhere, and here's kind of what I'm thinking, is that we'll just weld this bracket it came with right about there, and it'll give a straight shot right to where it needs to hook up and be nice and solid. So I think that's kind of where we're gonna go. So I'll unbolt this, weld it up, and we'll see how it looks. I guess I should have looked closer because this actually came with a mounting bracket that looks like it'll work nicely. Although I think we might stick with what we got because I don't really understand how the housing would be retained, so I already tacked that in. Obviously I gotta look at some diagrams a little bit more. Okay, so I think I got our throttle situation figured out. I ended up having to use this bracket because this is actually aluminum. Obviously you can't weld that to steel. So that worked out okay. They fit next to each other all right. And it's hooked up both up here and down on the transmission. I'll show you that. We're getting full travel on the throttle valve with wide open throttle up here, which is what we need. We'll leave that long for now just in case we gotta adjust. And I made this little spring extension. I don't know what you want to call it, but it comes down and has an edge that hits up here so that the pressure from the spring doesn't, you know, make it rotate. And that seems to work good. It's a little high effort. It's not crazy, but with the pedal it feels fine. So let me bring it down and show you how everything hooks up to the transmission. So down here our setup's really simple. I gotta wrote that. There we go. There's a bracket that bolts to tail shaft housing. You just have the cable that comes out and attaches to the valve up here. Well, the valve arm, lever arm. So you can see we got just a little bit of slack right now, which is what we want, and wide open it goes all the way back. Just check that by putting your finger on the throttle lever and making sure at wide open throttle you can't push it back anymore, which we cannot. So we should be all squared away on our throttle linkage situation. So I went through and tightened up all of our front end components because I needed to do it on ramps at height. Gave it a quick tape measure alignment and just went over everything, made sure we're not missing anything. And I think we're ready to fire it up and see if it drives. So let's hook it up. I already primed the fuel, put a gallon or two in the tank. Grab the timing light because we messed with the distributor. Okay, now we should be good. We are in park, which we gotta check because we don't have a working safety switch, obviously. Okay, so we gotta move all of the plugs over one because we're not quite where we need to be. It's loud, very loud. Thank you. Okay, we got all the plugs, wires moved over one, so now we should be advanced enough. Hopefully, we'll mess with it. Alright, running great. It's extremely loud. I can still hear it, but everything seems good. Just got a minor coolant leak I got to tighten up here. But beyond that, looking good. We accomplished what we set out to do. We got it driving, and it seems to be running great. Obviously, you can spin some rubber. So basically, mechanically, everything's done at this point. There's not really a whole lot more to do. I'll off camera because it's boring. I'll tape up all the wiring, go through all that, make sure everything's tidied up. Next time we're going to be working on this thing, we have some body work and that kind of thing to prep for paint. Check out the floor on the driver's side. This is probably what we're going to be tackling next. So you see we need a whole floor pan for the driver's side. Shouldn't be too bad of a job. So yeah, next time we'll be tackling that and starting on the interior and exterior. This thing's gonna need a lot of work on the outside before it's ready for paint. So until then, I will see you next time.